You wanna be comfortable. Okay, great. So I think maybe most of us are here and I would like to officially start the Environmental and Sustainability Committee meeting of the City Council. I'm Zeta Govan, I'm the Ward 8 City Councilor and the Chair of this committee. And I want to thank everybody for being here. So we'll start the meeting. I guess we're here to talk about the woodlands ordinance that we've been talking about for the last few months. And I think Ken Shea might have some news for us about it because we just sent him a few ordinances from Boston, from Somerville and other areas, and he was gonna come up with a draft. So Ken, he's our city council attorney, Ken Shea, and I wanna thank everyone for being here. Go ahead, Ken.
So a couple of things. First off, Alex Sherman and I met this past week to go over some of the logistics of what we're looking at. As far as a draft goes, I mean, I pretty much am probably going to base it off the Boston one. The basics of one of these ordinances is pretty basic. I mean, we're going to ultimately we'll have an ordinance that says that a tree of whatever size, 8-inch diameter or whatever, in order to cut that down, you'd have to get a permit. Okay. So that's the basics of it. I mean, it's kind of straightforward. And then there's the mechanics of how that's going to operate. And that's where, and the other thing that Alex and I looked at, and maybe, you know, when I get done, maybe Alex can speak to this, but looking, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the overall thrust here, I think, is to try to preserve the quote tree canopy within the city. And it's probably not an individual tree on
Right.
somebody's lot.
Right.
If you had 20 trees, you wouldn't need 20 permits, right?
You would.
You would need.
Well,
But
and
you would need a permit that allowed you to do the 20 trees if the 20 trees got permission to be taken down. Let's put it that way. I think that would, I don't think they'd issue 20
Right.
permits unless they were all done at a different time. So where was I now? So Alex and I, and maybe he can chime in, but we thought, you know, most of the lots in the city of Springfield are pretty much developed, and most of them appear to be 50 by 100 housing lots, the bulk of our lots. And they contribute to some level to tree canopy, but the big canopy issue that I think the thrust of this group is found more on the larger lots where there's a lot of trees. And so we took a look on maps, and we were hoping to have a map here for you showing you, we thought that maybe the 10,000 square foot lot and up would be the ones that have the largest tree canopies. And so Alex was able to bring some of that up on the computer, and you could see these large lots and the huge amount of tree coverage those lots have. And so we thought if we put any ordinance in place, if we're going to do every single lot in the city, the 50 by 100, that's a massive number of lots. And it would be a lot of manpower every time somebody on a residential building lot wanted to take a tree down, put that burden on. And so we thought what we would do is part of this ordinance. Our thinking was maybe we should limit it to lots 10,000 square feet and larger, because that's where the real canopy is in the city. That's really what we want to, I assume that's what you want to preserve. And so maybe at that point, if you want to address any of that particular piece first, Alex, before I go into some of the
Can I
other.
ask a quick,
Yeah,
the
and I-
lot that, oh, sorry, the
Go
lot
ahead.
that provoked this whole thing out in 16 acres, is that how many square
Right,
feet?
I have no idea what lot we're talking about.
Yeah, I'm still not sure what lot that,
so that's the
Talking
one
about.
on Allen and Cooley.
so what's,
It's not exactly on Allen, it's, you can see part of it on.
It's in that
Allen.
area.
You have to turn. I mean, there's houses here, there's,
Does it have trees on it now?
Oh, yeah.
it's full of
All right,
trees.
no, I thought you were talking about
And
something.
then there's like a bunch of houses over here, and in between them is
It's
a
between,
lot of trees.
between the parking lot of the Presbyterian Church
Mhm.
coming up Allen Street and the backside of that whole mall.
Yeah, Best Fitness.
Yeah, the fitness thing there, the big Y is at the far end of the mall. So it goes extensively.
Yeah, it's 8 acres, 8 acres of land.
Oh, well, that would come within the 10,000 square foot, 8 acres.
What is, how many acres is 10,000 square feet approximately?
It's like a quarter acre.
Oh,
Oh,
so
okay.
10,000 square feet is a quarter of an acre?
All right, so
Okay.
this is several
Yeah.
times.
Right.
Yeah, because Ken, I think when we first started doing this, it was to preserve a big lot of trees.
Right, that's what we
You know what I
thought.
mean?
Right. and-
Not just individual trees.
No.
So if someone has 2 trees on their lot that they wanna cut down, I don't think that's an issue. But
Right.
when we see a big lot of trees like that, that's what we're talking about. The woodland, urban woodlands ordinance is what we wanna
And,
do.
and
Talk
Alex
about.
can say this, or I will, but even on the 50 by 100 lot, if it's what's called a significant tree in the city, which I think is what, Alex?
36 inches.
36 inches,
Mhm.
they'd have, so if you have that on your single 50 by 100 lot, you're gonna have to get a permit anyway.
Right, right. Yeah, so that's
So that
protected.
covers
Those are
The
protected,
big
right?
tree.
Yeah.
So maybe,
So Alex, do you wanna chime in? And then I do wanna let the public make their comments, because they did come here to,
Well, yeah, so Ken and I met and we started kind of discussing how to approach this. What he had showed me wasn't very different than what we already have in Springfield with our significant tree ordinance, other than instead of 36 inches, it identified an 8-inch diameter limit for Boston. So that got us kind of thinking, well, that's unmanageable for us here in Springfield. We already have a significant tree ordinance that protects very large trees, so then let's start looking at the acreage. We did contact planning, Jason May, I'm the GIS manager, and planning to see if we could get some maps drawn up. Let me see what, I gave him some parameters. Basically, I asked him to send a map with an associated data table for all lots in Springfield that are greater than 10,000 square feet and that are privately owned. So I think at that point, we would sort of have a definitive list of these are the lots that would fall under this ordinance. And then I think that will be good to know, I think, from a decision-making standpoint, like, is it 10 parcels? I mean, it's probably not, but if it
Right.
was 10 parcels, do we really want to go through, all of this for that? But it will give us an idea of how many parcels would qualify on that 10,000 square foot threshold. So I didn't hear back from him. I did, to his defense, it was just last week. So, he had about, I think it was last Wednesday we met or something. So I didn't hear back from him before the meeting today. I just reached out to him to see if he was able to put it together. And if he does, I'll share that with the group.
okay.
So, that was kind of step one. So I think that's a smart move to start to go in that direction. The other thing we discussed is what type of activities would trigger the ordinance and where the department responsibilities would lie for this. And we've said from the beginning, and I know Director Ash agrees that is more of a planning issue than a forestry parks issue. We're certainly willing and able to provide any technical assistance and review of any permits or any process that's surrounding it, but I feel personally that it's more well-suited in a development. There's got to be some trigger where someone's applying for some type of development permit or some other permit to develop a parcel that would trigger this type of review by the planning board or whoever ends up being given that responsibility. And then in turn, if they do need assistance from forestry for any reason, then they can reach out to us. The other component that we discussed was requiring the developers to provide a detailed inventory or description of the project. If you're talking about 8 acres, I think Boston required, they wanted the size and type of every tree
Right.
being cut. So on an 8-acre parcel, that's a huge ask for a developer who may not even get a permit, may get denied. That's not really how forestry is done generally, at least that type of forest inventory. So developing some type of protocol where it's their responsibility to tell the city what's there, what they're planning on doing there and what the impact would be. And then the city can then figure out what the mitigation is, what's allowable, first of all, and then what, if any, it would be the mitigation for those trees that were being cut. So that was another component that I think still needs to be kind of worked out technically, like what are we gonna require them to provide us
Right.
to show what they want to do? And I'm trying to think of anything else we discussed, Ken.
I'll take the other piece. So the next thing is, Alex pointed out, is where are we gonna have this work from if a developer comes in? And well, he was speaking of planning and talking to the planning department. My idea is that we would do it in the building department. The planning department really does not get into this type of thing, nor do they have the staff to do it. So if someone comes in and they want to get a building permit, part of the building permit would trigger, because we'd know the lots that were involved, and that would trigger the fact that they'd have to go out and do this inventory, they would have to get permission. And so the building department, well, we haven't talked to the building department, realize, but we think that that would be the threshold when someone wants to do some development. The other problem we got is, well, it's very easy to put together an ordinance on the tree removal. That part is not difficult. Right now, the city does not have any staff in place to do it. It's not something that Alex is gonna be able to do. He's got all he can do to handle the trees in the park. So someone's gonna have to be there to issue permits.
Right.
Someone's
So
gonna have
Ken,
to,
if I might
yeah.
stop you there, right? Because I feel like we're putting the cart before the horse right now, because we want to get, I guess, the draft put down,
We can
right?
get you a draft.
Then we have to figure out, like you said, all these other logistics. And I think Amy actually probably knows how many lots of trees are out there, because she did some research on it. So if I may, please.
Yep.
I'm gonna let Amy, she's joined us. Thank you so much for joining us. If you could comment, Amy, there was a question about how many woodlands lots are out there. And you had your hand raised. Go ahead. And I think we're joined by Tim also.
Yeah, I see Tim's phone is there. So I haven't been able to finalize the survey of wooded lots, because we were trying to get a professor at UMass to assign it to one of his GIS students. So I've started one based on the limited GIS access that I have, but I would really like it if somebody with the, greater access to more detailed maps could go in. Because what we were really interested in were, as we've talked about before, is the private lots that, Alex and the forestry has already moved ahead with the ordinance to be more specific on public land and public access. But there are, I would just say in the past, because what we're considering as scans is single house lots are counted in that. And so I would just point out that in the survey we did just of East Forest Park and the outer belt, of the past 7 years, close to 100 lots have been clear cut just in those two neighborhoods in the past 7 years. So we consider any, buildable lot is considered, a privately held lot. And as we know, there's also now 15 acres on Allen Street are being considered for a clear cut for the solar project. And there's, 18 parcels behind Stop and Shop that just went back up for sale for development as well. So, and again, this is just in East Forest Park and the outer belt, that there's another, and then there's the buildings that are going in off Allen behind Bicentennial. So again, if all of these 3 projects go through, we're about to lose another close to 70 to 80 lots to be clear cut in just 2 neighborhoods. So there are lots out there. There are still urban woodlands left. So that's and in my survey, I found at least another 50 more in the other neighborhoods. But like I said, I need somebody with better GIS expertise than myself. So we're hoping when the fall semester starts to get a professor to assign it to maybe an intro, GIS data class. As far as like where it should be placed, we were really thinking that that it would be parallel to the Conservation Commission, so that it actually would be best within planning, that the planning already has the Conservation Commission set up. It already has a permitting process that goes through the wetlands law there. And so there is a commission, there is staff, there are people that already handle permitting based on environmental law. So SCAN's proposal was to put it in planning with the support of forestry as technical backup as necessary. And that we would recommend people, you know, depending on the details that we work out, as Alex said, as how we're going to measure, that they would use something like David Blonier's Regreen and pay them to do some type of a survey. He has the iTree, which just does the tree canopy, Dave and I have spoken, and he's also interested in doing something where you would survey the trees, not to the level of detail that Boston requires, but at least just knowing what's invasive trees, what are some saplings versus what are like mature trees, that kind of a idea. But like Alex said, that would be up to the developer, just like it is with the Conservation Commission in the wetlands. The developer has to prove that either there's no wetlands there or that they can build around the wetlands. So it still would be on the developer to do that part of it. So that would just be like, again, SCAN's kind of answer to those two questions. And I agree with Alex, we didn't want to work out the details until Alex had a chance to look at this. And also we need to, figure out, as far as like some of those parameters, what would be recommended for Springfield.
Mhm. Thank you, Amy. Thank you. And at this time, I'd like for you guys to introduce yourselves. I know Liz, if you could say your name and just where you're from.
Oh, okay. So my name is Mana Washio, and I live in 16 acre area.
Great. Yes, sir.
My name is Taka Hagiwara. I'm a husband of Manawashio.
Okay, great. And you, ma'am?
I'm Margaret Sheehan.
Margaret.
Yeah, so I am also out in the 16 acres abutting this area.
Excellent. And Mary Ann? I'm just writing first names.
16 acres.
16 acres, and sir?
I'm Derek Strahan. I'm with Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, Land Use and Environment Department.
Very good. Thank you for being here. So thank you all for coming. And I know you guys wanted to come and share I just wanted for all of us to hear, right, what the concerns of the residents are and why we want this to move forward. You wanted to share?
Yeah, sure. I actually have, but I can do at least, but I also, printed out some materials, the email from Dave Blonier.
Yeah, that was a
And
great one.
also another page from the Regreen website. So I'll just distribute for your information. I think should have enough for the committee members. So there are 4.
Yeah, there's 3 of us, but there's only one here.
Okay.
But if you could give one to Ken and to Alex, you think that might be helpful for you, Alex? Thank you.
And also the email.
Yes, that was great. So you know this, Alex.
If you want to share this with me.
Thank you.
So that's the email I received from Dave after Liz actually connected me with him. So thank you so much.
I know how to track him down.
Thank God.
So I just, I'm just going to read what I typed up last night just to cover what I wanted to say. But your honorable members of the Environmental and Sustainability Committee, thank you so very much for letting us concerned residents speak in your meeting today. My name is Mana Washio, and I'm a 16 acres resident. My husband and I bought a house and moved to Springfield in December 2023. As you know, NextGrid has proposed clear cutting 8 acres of trees in order to build 5,000 solar panels along Island Street. My husband and I and many other residents are deeply concerned about the significant environmental impact that could result from losing so many trees. Today, I have brought printouts of the info page of the Regreen Springfield website. This information clearly shows how much trees are currently doing to protect our environment. They're removing significant amount of pollutants every year, providing oxygen, cooling our streets, holding rainwater, and therefore keeping our rivers, lakes, ponds, and reservoirs clean, and so much more. As you're probably aware, Springfield's asthma rates are skyrocketing, and Springfield is very sadly called Asthma City. If 8 acres of trees are removed from a city, the air quality would become even poorer, and adults and children who already have asthma or other respiratory illnesses will suffer even more. I have recently heard about the tree ordinance you're trying to pass from Councilor Zaida Govan. We concerned residents are so very grateful for your effort and wholeheartedly support this ordinance. I also heard from Councilor Tim Allen recently that NextGrid has not yet finished with all the sign-offs and obtaining all necessary permits. So we do believe passing this tree ordinance in the city council meeting could create a significant impact. Lastly, I'd like to mention that I recently received an email from Mr. David Bloney-Arts, the president of Regreen Springfield. He reached out to me and very kindly offered to conduct the iTree analysis, which could quantify the benefits we are currently receiving from these trees at the proposed solar site, and also forecast the loss of these benefits and how greatly it would impact our city for the next 40 years. I have not yet received the result of this analysis, but I will receive it soon. If you are interested in this result, I'll be happy to provide this information to Councilor Zaida Govan so that she could share it with all the members of the Environmental and Sustainability Committee. I have also printed out the recent email from Mr. David Blonias for your information. I should have enough copies for all members of this committee today. Thank you so very much for all you do to protect our environment and reduce air pollution in our city. This is a critical time for all of us who live in Springfield, and our future generation is also at stake. We concerned citizens feel very fortunate to be able to speak today to address our concern and show our strong support for this very important tree ordinance. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you, Mana. Thank you. And if you wouldn't mind emailing me the
Sure, I will definitely.
The email, but.
Yeah,
so that
I will do
share
it today.
That's for the whole city council.
Yes,
We'll share
thank
it.
you.
Thank you very much.
Counselor Govan?
Yes, Counselor.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, I don't see the thing I'm supposed to click on to talk, so appreciate you having the meeting, etc. I just want to add to what I told Mana a couple weeks back, that I did stay with that with Steve Dessel, who had told me, I mean, actually, Steve had told me, maybe 3 weeks ago, that it had to go back to DPW. He was done. He's usually the last person in the line of signatures. It had to go back to DPW, apparently for a nominal issue. They had really approved it. So it went back to DPW. They approved that last minor issue, and the permit has been issued now.
Yeah. So I was afraid that was gonna happen. So the permit for NextGrid, they got the permit. And I'm hoping somehow that, I know you talked about people getting permits. So in a situation like this, I would hope that they would look at it. Okay, if they want to build a house there, they want to put solar panels, do they have to cut every single tree down? You know what I mean? Is it necessary to cut every single tree down? So that's a big concern. I'm sad to hear they got the permit, but I was kind of knew they were gonna get it before we were gonna be able to do too much about it. But hopefully
Right.
the next time something like this happens, maybe we'll have an ordinance in place so that we can prevent that from happening. And when Amy shared, I think she said 100 lots were clear cut in the last, I don't know how many years. That's scary, because that's taking away all the benefits that you mentioned and that are mentioned in this email from Regreen Springfield. So we just have to keep working at it, and I'm hoping that maybe before the end of the year, we'll have an ordinance in place and it'll go through. I know that we have some logistics to work out, but I think it's absolutely necessary that we do it. So thank you.
Can I just add to what Mana said, is that it's really important for us to understand that we are living with climate change. We're living with increased humidity, increased storms, increased heat. all of that is only mitigated in cities by mature tree clusters. That it is the only proven scientific way that cities have been dealing with increased runoff, increased rain, increased heat, all of which cause more public health problems, with not just asthma, but heat stroke, heart issues, high blood pressure. So we're looking at a climate change reality, and that the only proven urban way to mitigate these is with urban woodlands. And we're cutting the very thing that we need the most right now. So I think the urgency can't be, emphasized enough.
Yeah,
Thank-
thank you, Amy. Go ahead, Vern.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with the Springfield Climate Justice Coalition, and been kind of affiliated with this for some time, and it has just struck me as bizarre that you cut down trees to put up solar panels.
Yeah, it's
Cut
plus
down.
minus zero.
Yes.
Really.
And to me, that raises, I mean, that's more specific kind of issue about why it's being cut down. So I think there may be a broader policy issue here around solar panel siting, as well as protecting the woodlands piece of it. Because the ironic thing is it's right next to huge parking lots. And Stop and Shop has a parking lot.
Yeah, and the Stop and Shop is going out of business too.
They're
So
going out.
that building is available as well as the parking lot. So I was wondering if it's possible to build it there.
So I've been thinking that in addition, I mean, this is a bigger issue that the city should be thinking about. Because solar is going to be really pushed very hard once all this state climate stuff goes
Well,
through.
the thing is that right now, if you want to build a solar farm from the state level, they don't even need a permit. They could just come and say, okay, I'm gonna come here and build a solar farm because solar is so, good. But again, we have to find a way to mitigate. So I'm wondering if at the state level, we have to find in that whatever bill that they pass or the law that they pass, that solar could be put anywhere. If they could put in there somewhere where, they can't do it on a woodlands area and cut down all those trees somehow.
Right.
So I don't know where it would have to be.
And there was a webinar hosted by Senator Ed Markey, and I don't know if you have watched it or not, but Amy actually shared the link. So, we watched it, and many people here probably watched it too. But so basically, it's happening everywhere. But poor siting choice or the large solar project is happening everywhere, and people are trying to stand up and stop it, basically. And lots of experts are speaking from MIT and Harvard and whatnot, and there were lawyers there, and I'll be happy to share the link. I think it should be still on YouTube, I hope, but so it was very, very educational, and a very similar situation is happening in Dorchester, Massachusetts. It's very resemble like this, what we are going through right now. So and people are fighting against it, and
We have to keep doing it, and I think.
Wildlife,
Margaret.
Wildlife trucking, no offense, but we have turkey, we have deer, we have foxes up that way.
Bears.
So if you're talking about just totally decimating the land up there, these poor animals are on the fringes to begin with. Outside of humans, we're also impacting hugely on all of that. I can't even begin to tell you, the amount of wildlife that we have up in that area, amazingly, let me just put it to you that way. When we see, a turkey walking by, a fox coming through, to me, it's just amazing, and that you're grateful for what you see. And no offense, I think at the planning board meeting one time standing up, I said, what are we leaving on future generations? I grew up in that area, it's my childhood area. And you're just so grateful for what you had and what you saw and what you were able to do. We had a swamp area where you could skate, you could walk down. It's no offense, it may sound small, it may sound petty, but it's all quality. And when you just strip it away, piece by piece by piece, over a 7-year period of time, that 100, parcels and trees have been stripped. 7 years, wow. What's the next 7 years bringing? The fact we don't seem to be putting aside these green spaces, it's just,
I'm wondering, with respect to solar, if there's a way to incentivize putting it on parking lots. It seems to me there should be a way to do an analysis of the net gain or loss.
Yeah.
Carbon specifically, other kinds of things.
Yeah, and
And this would require a kind of a broader city stance, probably, like a stance on how do we want to solarize? Because putting it on parking lots not only takes it away from cutting down trees, it cools
It cools the
cools
parking lot.
cars, it
Yeah.
cools the
Yeah.
pavement. and
That's right. So it's a win-win situation. In fact, I actually went to one of the Outer Belt Civic Association meeting and I spoke with Daniel from Next Grid. And he, in front of us, I just kept asking probing questions and he said, well, actually 70% of our projects are done over the roof or on of a parking lot. And only 30%. So we would much rather not do it.
Right.
Right,
But
yeah.
when we approached, Stop and Shop about this project, they said, they pointed to that lot and saying, oh, you can purchase the land in Claycut and just build it there. So that's how it started.
So if I.
I just wanted to add to the wildlife thing is like sometimes people focus just on wildlife as like a quality of life or aesthetics issue, but it's also been shown that when urban woodlands are clear cut and you remove the ability of raptors and foxes to live there, you see an increase in mice and rats. So when cities clear cut and don't provide the places for these predators, mice and rats will continue. They'll live anywhere. So I noticed in my neighborhood, walking my dogs, I've lived in my neighborhood for 12 years. I've talked to 3 neighbors that are having mice problems, and I've noticed that I no longer see fox tracks in the winter like I used to, and the fox are what used to come in and eat a lot of the mice. So there will be rodent problems if we don't have those predators. And then also about the solar, there's many models of responsible solar ordinances. Zeta and I have talked about this too. And even Daniel from NextGrid said, you need to, as a city, get a responsible solar ordinance or the state law will always take precedent. And he actually advised the city to get one because he's had those in other cities where other cities in Massachusetts pass a municipal ordinance saying that the solar has to be prioritized on parking lots or large buildings. And there has to be a proof of reason why they want to clear cut. So that's a completely doable ordinance that we can model on in other towns from Massachusetts.
And would that stop the state? I mean.
Yes, the Daniel said that the municipal ordinances take precedent, but if there isn't one, then the state law stands.
Thank you, Amy. Mary Ann, did you want to say something?
Yes, I don't understand why it seems people don't care about the green. There's MOA that's supposed to be going in. Oh my God, it's ridiculous the way they're putting it. And then you've got the mini mall or whatever right there. And there's a daycare right on the corner. And then they're going to have houses right here. The screaming day, and I've been back there. They're kids, they're screaming and yelling. There's water there. And they're going to put some kind of I don't know what they're going to put in, it's kind of a system. And the houses are going to be on top of each other. And they're going to take the trees down. And all they do is take trees down. Allen Street has gotten hit with, and then pulling out from Emma is going to be a nightmare because there's a light down further a bit. And then you start going, and then MOA is going to be pulling out right onto Allen. And Allen Street is already crazy. When you're trying to pull out a Wilshire, you got to be so careful.
Yeah.
And it just, I don't know. I don't understand it. I was thinking the other day, we're going to have to go to Forest Park to
get your green. Yeah, that's sad. Thank you. I wanted to see, Derek, is there something that you would want to share with us or comment on?
I'm mainly here as an observer, taking notes. My supervisor, Catherine Rette, is out this week.
I'm so glad that she sent you.
So I'm here on her behalf, but
okay, great.
Yeah, right now my department is working on the neighborhood investment planning process. We're finishing up the second round, going on to the third round now. So it doesn't include East Forest Park and the other Outer Belt neighborhoods, but definitely this is all very relevant to consider as we look at what are the top priorities, not just neighborhood specific, but also citywide
Yeah,
for
thank you.
things like that. So thank you.
Go ahead.
No, I just
Shay.
wanted to ask a question. I'm not sure who mentioned it, the 100 lots that you mentioned
Amy.
that got cleared,
Mhm.
the building lots. Were were they 50 by 100 lots, or did they come out of a larger piece? Or were they individual building lots that people had? I'm just trying to get a sense of how that occurred.
There were measured by individual lots and then,
But were
You know,
they, you know what I mean, like a
I'd have to go, I don't have the numbers off the top of my head. I use the GIS system, so I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but they were the lots, just to give you a sense of what they were the lots on the Crystal Brook development, the lots off Talmadge, the lots to build like Florence Bank on Allen Street, the lots in my neighborhood, there were like 3 houses built. There was 2 large houses built off South Branch. So it's like a variety of different sized lots. But that was, that was the kind of thing that we were looking at when we did the survey.
Okay, all right. The only reason I asked that is because one of the focuses in the beginning was we thought if we use the 10,000 square foot as a baseline of where to start, because a lot of the little 50 by 100 lots in the city are pretty much developed. But if that's the case, then I may want to relook at that concept. That's the only reason I asked that question.
I would go with the smaller lot size, because what we're seeing, like with the Crystal Brook development or with the development behind Stop and Shop, they're breaking them down into smaller pieces in order to push the development through. So yeah, I mean, and the problem is that of course, none of these housing developments are actually helping with the housing issue, because most of these houses were large $400,000 to $500,000 homes with very limited, accessibility and quantity of residents. So, we really want to look at individual parcels, not just like large development size lots.
Yeah. So I think something that we have to, I heard us say, I know Amy said it, you said it about the wildlife, is that the earth takes care of itself. If we would just leave it alone, it would take care of itself. That's why the trees grow and, cleans the air, and the wildlife takes care of the other circle of life, right? And that's what we have to continue to try to work on. So we have to prevent, us killing the earth by taking out these trees, so I'd love.
By rodents.
I know, right?
Easy.
Well, the thing is
That's a
that
great
my
argument.
friend saw a bear, one of our neighbors in Indian Orchard saw a bear in their backyard, and there's this movie, I don't know, you should know it or watch it. You'd love it, I think. It's called Over the Hedge. It's a kid's movie, a cartoon. And that's exactly what that movie's about is, the wildlife is out there living all their little happy lives. And then one day there's a big hedge there. And they said, what's going on? And they look through the hedge and there's houses being built. So, they're getting their homes are being disrupted, and they have to climb through and make a mess in their neighbors because, that's what they do. So we have to, I think, be proactive on this, right? It might be too late. 100 lots got cut in the last 7 years, but let's save the next 100 lots, for the next few years so that we can have our asthma rates decrease, so that we can, have clean air, and have clean energy. So I love, now we gotta do another ordinance. We have a responsible
Well,
solar ordinance.
We can't
Next
mix
one,
that
Ken.
we can't mix, we
No, I'm
can't
just-
mix the ordinances
No, I
and we'll
know,
never
I
get it
know.
done. So
No,
that's
So we'll work on that one
separate issue,
next.
but, I will point out, I don't know if it helps or hurts, but it's interesting when they come in to do those large projects and clear a lot of trees, because one of the incentives they have for doing these solar things is they get tax credits. And
yeah,
every tree they take down in that property, they lose a tax credit. So if they come in and there's a lot of trees and they take all the trees down, they've lost That's the only,
That's right.
and it's probably not that strong of an incentive not to
Probably
cut,
not,
but
yeah.
that's the only
And that's what I'm.
barrier the
why don't
state
they
put in that clear cut thing is the,
leave all the trees around the solar farm up, right? And then just have the solar farm kind of like in the middle. So we still have trees somehow. I don't know. Maybe we could talk to Daniel and see if he'll consider figuring that out. I don't know if it's of course more work for them. We did talk to him initially about putting it in the parking lot. And I think what Stop and Shop said was that it would be more expensive because they have to dig into the concrete and all that stuff, but it's doable, you know. So
Yeah,
we
but
just
because
have to
I've
keep
seen
pushing.
it in many places, like, you
Yeah,
know,
well,
East.
Smith and Weston has one. I'd love one in my driveway, honestly.
I think Stop and Shop wanted to, I think they knew they were gonna close out that store. I think they wanted to sell off that lot, close out that store and get out of there with the least amount of effort possible. That now that we know that they're closing that, because they always run major like marketing groups and like you know, traffic studies before they decide to close a store. So they've been probably planning to close this store for months, so,
Yeah.
if not
That's-
years.
Right.
I mean, I
So-
think that's why you need a broader policy because there should be an analysis of what the external costs are.
Mm,
You know, for if putting it in the parking lot, yeah, it's gonna be less profitable for the company that does it, but more costly for the community around it. And those costs there ought to be a way to figure that in,
mhm.
so.
So
okay.
that's something that we'll definitely, you know, thinking about the solar is that'll be our next ordinance. But I know,
Zeta?
yes, Counselor.
Thanks. Yeah, I talked to Steve Desolitz about this and he said that, you know, he's the building guy, head of buildings, and he's confronted most issues. Maybe there's some new ones for him, but he said it's more expensive, to put it on a parking lot or a roof. Because you have to build a structure and things like that, so it's not as profitable so that's one consideration is that, and he said, we've done it in Springfield a little bit. Smith and Wesson, if you go by Smith and Wesson, you'll see some solar that's been put in their parking lot, et cetera. So there's a precedent for doing it, but it is a little more expensive because you have to build a structure, et cetera. But he was receptive to it and stuff. He said, we're doing it already. And I think the idea of a separate solar ordinance, looking at that is a good idea. I know we can't mix them up, Ken, but this seems to be separate from the tree stuff.
Also going to the state and doing something with the state law that's there, so that we can make sure that at state level, because all over the state, this is happening, like you said, right? So finding a way to maybe have the governor or the legislatures amend that state law so
Yes,
that
I think
they
that's
could
very.
avoid cutting trees down.
Mhm.
That will help us,
well, they can put the credit, give them
The
a credit
tax
for
credit.
doing it on the parking lot.
that's a
I
great
think
idea,
those-
especially for the cost.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's beyond what we
yeah,
gotta-
that's not what we're
we
talking,
gotta
we can stay
if we
on
don't stay
topic.
focused on this, it's not gonna get done.
No.
Because every time you add something in,
Mhm.
it opens
Yeah.
another can of.
No, we're
worms.
not,
So
that's not what we're doing here. That's a whole separate
Right,
thing.
we've gotta
I think we
stay
have enough groups here.
Focused on the tree.
We have scans, we have SCJC, we have Mana's group, that we can, focus on those other things. But for this group, right now anyways, I want us to focus on the urban, the woodlands ordinance so that we can protect our future trees, our future lots. So, thank you all for coming. I think, I'm gonna start to close only because I wanna see what our next meeting is going to be and hopefully we'll have a draft, Ken.
And I can give you the draft, okay, and what I'm hesitant, and we could pass it, but if we don't have a backup structure, it's gonna sit there, like we've
Right.
already got an ordinance that the city council passed in which there's no funding and there's no staff, so while there's an ordinance there,
Right.
you
So
can't enforce it.
we're not gonna let that happen
So-
here, so that's
So
why.
you sort of gotta get the pieces together, and
Let's do
those are
that.
the difficult pieces, but,
Mhm.
you know,
But I think Amy's idea with the Conservation Commission,
right,
I
that
think that's
sounded pretty
great.
promising,
so let's see if we can talk to them about
Right.
that. And have them agreed to take it on.
Yeah, and we'll be happy to speak, it's just that, when you reached out, they said, oh, it's strictly for wetland. So unless your topic is related to wetland, you cannot, speak, so that's.
Yeah.
We would have to have them create like a parallel thing, like Manna said, because the law requires a conservation commission specifically for the wetlands law. But I think like what we would do is just create something parallel that's just the exact same type of structure in the exact same office and run the meetings the same way the Conservation Commission does. And maybe some people would be willing to be on both of it as part of launching the new one, you know what I mean? Like get like Chris Collins or, some of those to actually like help set up the Woodlands one. But to me, it would be the exact same process, just with different terminology and assessment.
Yeah, so how would we go about doing that? Should we have a meeting with them, the Conservation Commission?
I think
Or-
it wouldn't hurt to do that.
Mhm.
We could have a meeting. We might want to just have a meeting of a couple people at first to
Yeah.
get a lay of the
Yeah.
land before we have a public meeting.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah,
To have a sense of that.
Jim?
Kim?
if we could spell out exactly what the reasons are, a few bullet points, exactly why that seems like a logical thing to do, I'd be happy to meet with Chris Collins or whomever. Frank Ryan is on there. I see him all the time. And have an early conversation.
Yeah.
Chris is the chair, I think, so.
Right. Okay, so Tim, maybe you want to set that meeting up and I can go with you?
Sure, I'll reach out and figure out, who the right people to meet are, sure.
And so the bullet points, I like Amy, if you wouldn't mind, I know I always ask Amy to do a lot. If you wouldn't mind, maybe doing those bullet points for the Conservation Commission to let them know, so we could do the work for them so that they don't have, to create it.
Yeah, I'll make it seem as little work for them as possible, because that to me is like what we really want for ourselves and for them, is to make this like a smooth kind of setup. So I can do that.
Me.
Okay, that'd be great. That'd be good. So Amy will send us some bullet points for the Conservation Commission. Tim is gonna schedule a meeting with them, and Ken and I will join Tim and have that conversation. And then I think our environmental and sustainability committee meeting, I think I'd like to meet maybe in 3-4 weeks to come back and see where we're at, if we've met with the Conservation Commission, if they agreed, and if we can start the ordinance. Ken's not.
I can give you a
Yes.
draft of an ordinance then. That is the
Then,
problem.
okay.
That is not that's the least
No.
of our problems.
Right, so we just want the Conservation Commission or someone to be on board with making sure that it follows through and it goes through. So it sounds like we might need some Conservation Committee members for that part of it, for the woodlands part of it. So if anybody's interested, right, you can join it.
So why don't we do 4 weeks?
4 weeks, so let's say the 17th of September, right? So let's,
Would that be a Tuesday?
it is a Tuesday.
Okay.
Usually 12 we do it. Is that a good time for people? I know you said it
Yeah, for
wasn't.
some people who are working, I think 5 PM is much easier, but but
Pushing your
we'll
luck.
see,
Yeah, because only we want city people to come sometimes, like Attorney Shay and Alex and Pioneer Valley. So if it's okay, and then also if they can watch it on YouTube after. with
Oh, okay, I
Focus-
didn't realize.
Yeah, Focus Springfield, they record all our meetings, so they're public meetings, okay? So let's do that, E and S, and I'm gonna tell them right now so that they don't.
So maybe today's meeting recording can be sent to those people who
Yes.
couldn't come.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll do that. And also Dave, I hope he will get back to me soon so that
I'm
I
going
can.
to, so, it's fine.
Liz is gonna find them.
On my way home.
All right.
Thank you so
Excellent. So are
much.
there any last minute words or comments or
I
questions?
just have a question, and it's because I'm really not a specialist on trees, but does this company, Next Grid, do they have to purchase the land? Have they already purchased the land?
I think they went through all that process.
They
It's actually
they
been shot.
permit, but have they?
Own the land to get the permit.
Yeah.
Ah,
So
So
Liz,
what's-
just so you understand, this has been going on for 4 years, and this is one of the issues that we've reviewed. This is that unfortunately, because of it was a solar project, all they had to do 4 years ago was go to Phil Dromey and say, we want to buy this parcel and clear cut it for solar. And Phil said, okay, like,
State
go
law.
ahead. And so there was no public announcement made, and there was no public requirement to notify city council. So that would be part of the responsible solar ordinance too, that before any solar project would come into a neighborhood, the city council and residents would have to be notified of the proposal.
It's because I distributed this flyer with the help of the other residents at the beginning of June. 50% of the resident had no idea
No,
that
nobody
this
knew.
was going on.
We
And I
didn't know.
I didn't know either.
Until
And my,
recently.
my neighbor walked by with her dog and I was going to take my dog out and we started talking and I was like, what? I never heard anything about it.
Yeah, so that's true, Amy, and that's, again, our next ordinance.
Yes.
Keep getting busy.
Well, yeah, I don't mind being busy.
All right, so listen, thank you all so much for coming. I look forward to the next meeting, and hopefully we'll have some great news at our next meeting.
I have final words to
Yes.
offer. A quote from Wendell Berry,
Uh-huh,
environmental activist. Be joyful, even though you've considered all the facts.
yeah,
Yes, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Counselor Govam.
good one, thanks, Vern.
And please let us know if there's any
Thanks.
for us residents to speak, but I need to coordinate everybody's schedule, so the earlier we know, the
No.
more people can join.
Yeah, thank you.
You have solar on your roof.